Hello everyone. In today's video I bring you an unbelievable and transformative story. Let's meet Ethan Carter, a young man who suffered a serious car accident and, during minutes out of body, discovered a shocking truth. Everything we experience here on Earth is just an illusion. What he saw on the other side will forever change the way you see life. So before we start, leave a like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this, activate the bell to receive all notifications, and comment below which city you're watching us from. Now, get ready for a deep and breathtaking journey. My name is Ethan Carter. I'm 27 years old and I grew up in a small town in the interior of Arizona, surrounded by golden deserts and endless horizons. It was a Sunday and I was on my way to visit my mother, driving along Highway 87, a road so empty it seemed to disappear into the horizon. The sky was clear and the heat made the asphalt tremble like water. I was humming some song on the radio when suddenly everything changed. A pickup truck came out of nowhere. There was no time to think nor to react. There was just a violent crack like thunder inside my skull, and then silence. I remember closing my eyes for a moment as if blinking, but when I opened them again, the world had transformed. Time had stopped. Floating above the wreckage of my car, I saw my own body limp, twisted, bleeding on the steering wheel. I felt a biting cold, as if the surrounding desert had been replaced by an invisible winter. Is this death? I thought. But before I could understand what was happening, a powerful force began to pull me upward, as if I were a feather carried by the wind. Then I saw it. A tunnel, made of pure living light, opening into the sky above the desert. It was beautiful. The road, the car, the heat, everything became small, insignificant. The tunnel seemed to whisper my name without using words. Come home. Without understanding, without resisting, I went. And this is where my true journey began. A journey that would reveal something to me that would forever change everything I believed about life, love, and the very meaning of existence. When I entered the tunnel, an indescribable feeling came over me. It was like I was sliding down a river made of liquid light, but this light, it had consciousness. She knew me more than I had ever known myself. As I progressed, images began to pop up around me, like holograms floating in the air. Moments from my life, small gestures, forgotten laughter, hidden tears. Each image was filled with emotions, so intense that I could barely bear them. I not only saw what I had done, I felt what others had felt because of me. The pain I caused, the love I gave, the void I left in some. Do you think this is real life? A voice echoed inside me, soft and crushing at the same time. It wasn't a voice made of sound. It was like a thought that didn't come from my mind, but from something much bigger. Without realizing it, I no longer had a body. I didn't need a body. I was just pure awareness, free from weight, free from pain, free from the mask I had worn all my life. And it was then that I saw it. At the end of the tunnel, something so absurd, so overwhelming that for a brief second my old self wanted to retreat. There was a light. Not an ordinary light, not a light you see with your eyes. Was the light. Something that seemed to be the source of all the stars, of all the dreams, of all the loves that ever existed. And in some inexplicable way, I knew. That's where I always belonged. Get ready, the voice said. What you knew as life will seem like a shadow in the face of what is to come. My heart, if I still had one, raced with anticipation. And it was at that moment that the illusion began to crumble before my eyes. When the light completely enveloped me, it was as if I had exploded into 1,000 pieces and, at the same time, become whole for the first time. There was no longer a separation between the I and the whole. I was part of something infinite, indescribable, something that knew me deeply, since before time. Within the light, there were no questions, only answers. It wasn't a place, it was a state of being, and everything that was pain, fear, ego, was gone. That's when the revelation came. The light told me without words but with overwhelming clarity. Ethan, what you experienced on Earth was just a dream, an illusion. None of it was real. My memories, my parents, my loves, my scars, my struggles, as all of this was part of a great theater. A performance made to teach, to experience, but not to last. You were playing a role on a temporary stage. I didn't know what to think. Like this? My pain was real. My happiness was too. My father's death, my mother's kisses, the first time I fell in love. All this was important only for your evolution, not for eternity. And at that moment, as if the universe wanted to prove this, revelation, everything I knew about Earth began to disappear before my eyes. I saw scenes from my life melting like paint on a wet board. My face, my friends, my memories, everything falling apart, returning to a pure essence. Light. Felt like I was waking up from a dream that had lasted years, centuries maybe. But now that I was awake, it was obviously that was all just a simulation. And you know the craziest thing? I didn't feel afraid. I felt relief. Relief at finally remembering who I really was. A being of light, eternal, indivisible, just playing at being human for a while. I asked myself, so, who else is stuck in this dream? And the light replied, everyone. But each one will awaken in their own time. And there, for the first time, I understood the true nature of reality. After everything I knew about Earth went up in smoke, something even more impressive happened. The light around me expanded and began to show me other lives. Not just the life I had just left, but hundreds of other journeys in bodies, times, and places that I never imagined. I saw myself as an elderly woman in medieval Scotland, as a young warrior in lands that seemed like ancient Japan, as a simple peasant in a forgotten village in Mexico. I lived through wars. I lived through forbidden loves. I lived through loneliness. I lived through joy. All of these lives were mine, and at the same time, they weren't. You are the actor, the light revealed to me. Each life is just a role. Each pain, each victory, each loss are just scenes in a great play. The emotions were so real, so deep that I cried. I cried for every life I forgot, for every love I left behind, for every story I lived and abandoned like an old garment. And the light explained something to me that took my breath away. You asked to forget. You wanted to live the illusion so you could learn the value of what is eternal in the home. Love. That was like being punched in the soul. None of that was punishment. No pain was punishment. It was all contona choice. It was all con learning. It was all common theater. But the theater was so well done, so intensely lived, that most of us forgot it was just a role. And it was at that moment that the light showed me millions of other souls still incarnated, still trapped in the dream, believing that their pain was all that existed, fighting, suffering, loving it, forgetting. My heart broke with compassion. I wanted to shout to everyone, "You are infinite. You're light. This is all just a dream." But in the world of Earth, where masks are heavy and forgetfulness is deep, I knew not everyone was ready to wake up. And then the light said, "You'll see more, because you asked to remember." And what would come next would make me see Earth in a way that not even in my wildest dreams could I have imagined. The light around me began to vibrate in a different way. It was as if space itself was folding, opening up new layers of reality that my mortal eyes would never have been able to see. In front of me, something appeared that looked like a gigantic gate of pure energy. It wasn't made of matter. It was made of intention, of power, of something too sacred to be described. I knew, without anyone having to explain it to me, that was the limit, the border between worlds, the line that separated those who remember from those who still sleep. The light spoke to me without words. If you cross Ethan, you will no longer be able to return to the Earth game. My heart, or what was left of it, beat like silent thunder. It was tempting. It was irresistible. The promise of home, of eternity, of no longer needing to suffer within the illusion. But at the same time, something was pulling me back, an invisible, fragile, and indestructible thread, my mission. I had chosen to forget. I had chosen to live. I had chosen the illusion, precisely to experiment, learn, evolve. And now, facing the final frontier, the light asked me the hardest question of all. Do you want to go back, Ethan? I hesitated. Every cell in my being screamed to stay, to dissolve into that infinite peace, to leave behind the pain and confusion of the earthly world. But then, a vision exploded before me. I saw my parents crying in front of a coffin. I saw my sister, who I had always been so close to, broken by grief. I saw faces I didn't even know yet, souls I was supposed to meet on Earth, who depended on my existence to complete their own learning cycles. I realized my story hadn't finished. Yet, the light understood. She didn't force it. He just welcomed my decision with a love that crushed any trace of fear within me. And then, with a sweetness impossible to describe, the light said to me, "Come back, Ethan, and remember, Earth is just a stage. Live. But never forget who you really are." And in the blink of an eye, or maybe a century, I was thrown back through the tunnel, back onto that desert road, back into my broken body, but not defeated. And it was there, between life and death, that something inside me changed forever. I woke up to artificial sunlight invading my eyes, not the warm glow of eternal light, but the cold glare of the hospital's fluorescent lights. My body ached as if every bone had been forcibly rebuilt. Tubes coursed through my veins, monitors beeped from time to time, and anxious voices floated around me. Doctors, nurses, my parents sobbing with relief. To them, I had survived a near-fatal accident. For me, it was as if I had been forcibly ripped from home to return to a world of cardboard and fake sets. As the faces rotated before me, something became very clear. I saw beyond the masks. I felt the fear hidden behind the smiles, the unspoken pain in the shining eyes, the doubt behind every word of comfort. I knew everyone was sleeping, trapped in the same theater that I had just seen melt in front of the light. No one there, not even the doctors who saved me, knew they were just acting in a play written long before their first cries. Every tear, every laugh, every ambition was part of the same game of learning and forgetting. I tried to speak. I tried to tell him what I had seen. I tried to describe the feeling of being swallowed up by true reality. But the words, they were too small, too rude. There was no way to explain with sounds what it was like to be part of the light, so I simply smiled. I smiled at everyone who entered the room, and no one understood why. How could I explain that I wasn't crying for the pain of my body, but for the overwhelming beauty of what I had left behind? In silence, I promised myself, I will no longer live in oblivion. I would live my life knowing that I was just a character, playing a brief story on a stage of illusions. But unlike before, now I knew the end of the play, and that changed everything. The days in the hospital dragged on like a poorly staged play. Doctors came and went talking about fractures, concussions, millimeters of luck, but inside I was somewhere else. What no one knew could know, is that I had come back with something different in me. It was as if reality had cracked. I saw things, I felt things, small glitches, as if the matrix of earthly life had begun to fail before my eyes. A clock that always stopped at the same second, people repeating exact sentences as if they were stuck in a loop. And strangest of all, looks. Looks from strangers that lasted a second longer than they should have, with an intensity that made me think, do they know? There was a cleaning woman at the hospital. She spent every day at the same time. One day when I was alone with her, in the room she stopped mopping the floor, looked directly at me and said something that froze me. "You saw it, didn't you? The light." My heart raced. I could only shake my head, barely breathing. She smiled sweetly and whispered, "So you remember. You're one of the ones who came back with the memory." Before I could ask anything, she calmly left, and I never saw her again. That's when I understood I wasn't alone. There were others, people who had passed through the veil, who had seen what I saw. Some remembered, others forgot, and others were waking up. Little by little, I realized that my return was not a mistake. It was a call. The light had allowed me to see, but now it wanted me to experience. That I would become a point of light in the midst of illusion, to touch other souls and perhaps help them remember. It was at that moment that I understood. The mission was not to understand, was to feel. Era, to remember. Era, live with awareness within oblivion. And I was ready to start. When I finally returned home, I thought everything would go back to normal. But the truth is that nothing would ever be normal again. Each person I encountered seemed like a character from a forgotten play, acting out their lines without ever questioning the script. I walked the streets and saw the tired, hurried faces, worried about problems that now I knew were just pieces of a collective dream. It was like living in a movie where I was the only one who knew it was just a movie. My friends asked me how I felt. I smiled and said I was recovering. But inside, the truth was different. I no longer completely belonged here. There were times when the longing for the light was so overwhelming that I could barely breathe. There were nights when I looked at the starry sky and felt deep down the call of true home. But at the same time, something inside me changed. I began to see beauty in simple things, in the wind playing with the trees, in a child's spontaneous laughter, in a stranger's sincere hug. Because now I knew these small moments were the only fragments of true reality that escaped into the dream. The love, compassion, free kindness. These were not illusions. These were echoes of light, pieces of home that still vibrated, even within the theater of earth. And so, day after day, I began to understand my mission. It wasn't about destroying the dream. It was to light up the dream, to be a walking reminder that there is something beyond. Something so big, so beautiful, so real that no human words could contain it. It was in this process that I discovered the greatest truth of all. We are not here to escape the illusion. We are here to transform the illusion into the brilliance of who we already are. And that would be the biggest challenge of my life. A few months after the accident, I was alone at home, trying to meditate, something I had never done before the NDE. I still felt like a foreigner in my own skin, but that night was different. The air seemed thicker, too silent. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and said, without knowing exactly to whom, "If you're still there, show me. Let me remember again." And in that moment, time stopped. Everything disappeared. The room, the sounds, the body, the floor. I was there again. But this time there was no tunnel, no transition. It was like going through an invisible mirror and on the other side finding something that I had never stopped being. Light appeared before me, not as a separate entity, but like something inside myself. And then she spoke, or rather felt inside me. "You never left home, Ethan. Home is in you." I cried, a cry without a face, without a body, made only of essence, because I understood. The truth that I sought so much out there, in books, in religions, in teachers. It was always here, in the silence between two thoughts, in the love between two souls. The moment you let go of the control and simply, if it is. The light then showed me a circle of souls, beings I recognized without knowing. They radiated the same glow. And I knew. They were other awakened souls spread across the planet. Each one living their own life. each carrying a spark of home, each one waiting for the right moment to remember. And at that moment, with a love that tore me up inside, the light said, "You're still in the dream, but now you know you're dreaming. Use this wisely. You are the reminder." And just like that, without warning, I was returned to my body, back to the living room rug, with tears streaming from my closed eyes. I hadn't died again, but for a moment I had come home. If you saw me today, walking down the street, having a coffee, or laughing with friends, you wouldn't imagine that. For a few minutes I touched what exists beyond reality. I look normal, but nothing inside me is the same as before. I carry a living memory inside my chest, not like a distant memory, but like a flame that never goes out. A silent certainty that all this here, it's just the stage, a temporary piece. A dream too dense to be perceived as a dream. But now that I've woken up, even though I'm living inside the dream, I can't ignore it anymore. And if you're listening to me right now, maybe this is a calling for you too. How many times have you felt like you don't belong in this world? How many times have you felt a longing that you can't explain? As if you're waiting for something, or someone, that you don't even know who it is. So listen carefully. This longing has a name. This call originates. You are remembering. Remembering that pain is not everything, that failure does not define you, that the earth, with all its beauty and suffering, is just a classroom for eternal souls. A sacred theater where each act, however dark, carries the seed of light. Yes, life is an illusion, but it is. It is within the illusion that the soul learns to shine. And now that you know, the choice is yours. Continue playing your role without questioning, or live with conscience, with love, with courage, knowing that your every gesture, no matter how small it may seem, can awaken another sleeping soul, because that's what the light taught me. It's not about escaping the illusion, it's about lighting it up, of becoming the reminder. And if I can be that reminder for at least one person, so coming back was worth it. If you liked this beautiful, spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.